Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Honor to him, the blessed one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. My utmost respect to the perfectly enlightened Sammasambuddha, the noble doctrine of the Buddha, and the noble Mahasangha, the disciples of the Buddha. Hello Dhamma friends, welcome to week 19 guest lecture series, a program organized by Dhamma USA. Please mark your calendar every Thursday at 6 p.m. to attend this guest lecture series. Kindly check with Dhamma USA YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Facebook groups for more updates. We believe that this effort by Dhamma USA is going to help the community to apply Buddhist teachings in a more practical level. Please kindly post your questions in the comment sections of Dhamma USA YouTube channel or Facebook page so that our guest lecturer can answer them at the end of the talk. Today's topic is loving kindness, Mettā in thought, word, and deed, presented to us all by Professor Asanga Thilakaratne. Professor Asanga is a well-known internationally Buddhist scholar who has been teaching subjects related to philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, logic, and critical thinking since 1986. At the time, he joined University of Hawaii, Department of Philosophy as a PhD student. In 1992, he joined Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies as a senior lecturer. He was a senior Commonwealth Fellow at Oxford University, UK from 1999 to 2000. Professor Asanga continues to inspire public through his teaching at many other academic institutions all over the world, including Sri Lanka and Asia. For more info of Professor Asanga academic journey, please visit dhammausa.org. Welcome, Professor. Good evening to you. It's an honor to have you here with us today. We hope you're doing well.
Welcome, Dhamma friends. Actually, good morning from Sri Lanka. I'm glad that I become a part of this discussion series. I should thank Venerable Sumit, the organizer of this event, for inviting me. So thank you very much. What I would like to do is say a few ideas about loving kindness, particularly with emphasis on how to put that into practice. And then towards the end, if you have any questions, maybe we will have a discussion. By selecting this theme, in fact, I had a few objectives in my mind. One is take a very useful Buddhist concept, a Buddhist insight, and explore how the practice of this idea would help people help us in our personal lives, and also how it would help people, us as a group, as a society, and finally as a world. So that is the basic idea, the intention of my selecting this topic. And by selecting this topic also, I wanted to show that in a way we can say that practicing Mettā is Buddhist religious act. So it falls within the Buddhist religious practice. However, at the same time, I wanted to show that practicing metta, while it is a Buddhist religious practice, actually we don't need to confine it into merely to Buddhist religious practice. So you are practicing Buddhism, you are practicing religion, in fact, by not practicing, because the whole concept of metta, friendliness, as I will show you, is a universal concept. It goes beyond all our religious denominations and other cultural limits. So it's a universal concept. So in that sense, one doesn't need to think that one is practicing Buddhism or something. Of course, absolutely nothing wrong in doing that. But what I'm trying to say is, it goes beyond all these categories. So you can develop it as a universal category. Then, of course, also I had in my mind to briefly explain how it functions in the Buddhist soteriological path. Now, that's another very important aspect, but in my discussion, I will place that towards the end of this discussion. So these are the objectives I had in my mind when I selected this topic. Now, coming to the concept of metta, in Theravada Pali language, or Maitri in Sanskrit language, we usually translate this into English as loving kindness. I think the English translation tries to capture the subtle meaning of this concept in English language, because when you say kindness, it indicates some type of state of mind, behavior, but basically motivated by compassion. And then when you talk about love, of course, it has very wide meaning, but the most popular meaning is, the good sentiment between, the two people, and, so on. I think the Buddhist concept of metta, although it is translated as loving kindness, basically the concept means friendliness, or the state of mind characterized by friendliness. I think the concept of friendliness is very important here, because true friendliness, as you know, goes beyond our personal interest and personal considerations. So it is very, very broad, and also it's very, I would say, generous. So when you take the metta as friendliness, I think it highlights the more practical aspect of this concept. Now, concept of friend, as you know, is discussed in Buddhist philosophy and also in Western philosophy, in philosophical and religious traditions, in different religions, in different names. But when Buddhism tries to articulate this concept as friendliness, metta, I think Buddhism places a very important significance on this, namely that true friend or true friendliness is something without which we cannot function in the world. We cannot live in the world, because we all live in society, we all live in people, we all live in family setups, social setups, and we spend our time in our workplaces, and all types of social activism, and then we interact with people. So the Buddhist, the principle that would define our behavior in social action is, friendliness. I remember in one place, uh, the conversation between Venerable Ananda and the Buddha. So Ananda ventures to say that entire holy life, say he was referring to the monastic life. He said the in the holy life, half of the holy life is true friend. The Buddhist concept goes as Kalyana Mitta. So it is the Mitta, Kalyana Mitta, good friend. So his idea was that the half of the thing is Kalyana Mitta. It is so important. And in the conversation, Buddha corrected him. Buddha said to him, Ananda, no, not half. The entire holy life is good friends. Now you see this Buddha's amendment to Venerable Ananda's statement suggests that the friendliness, having good people around you with friendliness, is very important. Now, when we look at our social life, very often we know that we are in family setting, and then in family setting, we have not chosen our parents. Parents are there, and then we have a mutual relationship, and then we have brothers and sisters, and also we have not chosen them, so they are there. And then we talk about the bond between parents and children. We talk about the bond between siblings. But when you look at the society, you see that these relationships, actually, they are given to you in a way. So you have your brothers and sisters. You love them, and also you have to love them. And you have your parents. You love them, and then also you have to love them. What I'm trying to tell you is this kind of social relations, the family relation, work relation. In the workplace, you have boss and other people. So you have to work with them. So very often we know that we become very polite, and we become very complying, and then we support. But this structure comes from some kind of obligation, so to say. You have to do those things, so you do them. But then very often in society, we see that this kind of relationship, the relationship between parents and children, a relationship between siblings, brothers and sisters, or relationship in the workplace, these relationships go wrong. But still you do things because you have to do them. But then your actions, your words, your thoughts don't come from your inner, the inner heart. You just do them. So my analysis is that these relations, when they are not coupled with friendliness, they become very mechanical. They become very kind of rising from your obligation to do something. You are not really doing them out of your whole heart. So relationship between parents and children can be very beautiful if it also has friendliness. This whole sentiment of friendliness, if you have towards your mother and father, it becomes very beautiful. It becomes very, in a way, very informal, but at the same time, very cordial and very selfless. Same thing with brothers and sisters. Now, you see, in most of our lives, our real confidants are not our brothers and sisters. We don't say things to them. We hide things from them. But we have friends to whom we say everything. Now, what is the difference? Because if you really had friendship plus along with your um, brotherliness or sisterliness, then of course it becomes a very, very enjoyable experience, because your brother or your sister is also your best friend. Your mother or your father or both are your best friends. They are mother plus friend. They are father plus friend. They are brother plus friend, sister plus friend, and other all types of relatives we have in our society, and also the workplace, and all these things. So therefore, this whole concept of friendliness and the friend, I think something very important. It goes beyond our formal relations that arise from a sense of obligation. Okay, so therefore, I think this concept of friendliness is something very important. Now, in my discussion today with you, I thought I will base my rest of the discussion on this very well-known discourse that occurs in the Buddhist literature, namely Karaniya Metta Sutta, basically articulating the concept of metta, and also indicating how to practice metta. As you know, particularly in the Buddhist world, also Theravada Buddhist world, this discourse is known by practically everybody, and many people, learn it by heart. So they recite it. So therefore, very familiar. However, this familiarity, very popularity itself has done some kind of disservice to this very, very important discourse by the Buddha. Disservice is that when it is such an important thing, when it becomes a kind of matter of fact, a day-to-day thing, people lose sight of the significance, the very, very important, the meaning of this sutta. So therefore, I thought I will, of course, I know that maybe all the listeners know about it, but still I will ask you to, pay your attention to the significance of this sutta. Now, in this sutta, we are told that by the commentator Buddha Ghosha that the reason why Buddha had to teach this concept, give this discourse, according to the commentarial story, whole group of monks, bhikkhus, went into the forest to meditate, and then when they entered the forest and sat under trees and started meditating and going around in the forest, the story says that in the traditional language that the divine beings associated with trees got disturbed. So therefore they wanted these monks to be out from the forest, so they displayed some kind of hostile behavior towards them. So the monks who went to practice meditation were disturbed by these non-human beings, and they could not continue with their meditation. So they came back to the Buddha and reported the matter. Now, that is the background when the Buddha taught this discourse. Now, the commentary says something very, very important. It says Buddha taught this discourse, Karanimetta Sutta, for two purposes. Now, one purpose is for the sake of protection. Now, the monks have been disturbed by these non-human beings, so they need security, they need protection. So the Buddha taught this discourse in order to generate the idea of protection, provide protection. And then also the commentary says Buddha taught this discourse also for as the path practice. So on the one hand, it is the protection, but at the same time, it is the soteriological path, nirvanic path. It is for as the aspect of path. So therefore, these two aspects are, I would consider, very important, because now when you take the concept of protection and safety, usually we are thinking of today we are thinking of maybe various means of protection, physical protection, maybe weapons, maybe protective devices, walls, doors, windows, locks, and stuff like that. That is what we are thinking. The interesting thing here is when these practitioners were threatened by these various forces, the Buddha's answer to them was, you develop metta in yourself. You develop metta towards the all beings, and you go back to the same forest, and then you continue practice with your meditation. Now, I think this lesson is very, very important. They were asked to be equipped with metta and to go back to the same place. And lo and behold, it made a big difference. These monks were welcomed by those inhabitants, and then both parties lived happily. How did this happen? Now, according to the thinking of this discourse, it happened not because of anything else. It happened simply because the monks were strengthened with the concept of metta. So it made magics, right? So I think this basis is something in that sense very important. So in the Karanimettā Sutta, because it was addressed to the Buddhist monks, the first part of the sutta lists some of the very, very important personal characteristics that should be cultivated by a practitioner, Buddhist monk. So that is one part. And then Sutta goes on to define who are the objects of our metta. We will come to that. And then subsequently, Sutta describes how to practice metta towards all beings. And then finally, it ends with highlighting the applicability of the sutta for the soteriological path, for the practice of the path. So this is basically what is happening with the sutta. Let me. I'm not going to go into all the details, but let me just read for you. This. The first aspect, I'm not going to describe the whole list of virtues, not that it is not important, but because for my immediate purpose, I will leave it to save time. The next aspect is how to Buddha defines to whom we should practice metta, right? Now, it goes like this. May all beings be happy and secure. May they be inwardly happy. May they be inwardly happy. And it goes on saying, let me see, whatever beings, living beings there are, let me get a little bit more light here. Okay. Whatever living beings there are, whether frail or firm, without omission, those that are long or those that are large, middling, short, fine or gross, whether they are seen or unseen, whether they dwell far or near, whether they have come to be or will come to be, may all beings be inwardly happy. Now, this part of the account shows that whole idea of all beings. Who are the all beings? Now, all beings are then described in detail, referring to different sizes and so on. Now, this whole idea is that sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. This is the Pali term. May all beings be happy. So, whole idea is that your metta ultimately has to be directed to all beings without any distinction. I think this concept has to be understood in with its wider significance, because the Buddhist idea is that ultimately you cannot limit your metta. So this is, we are here talking about metta unlimited. So your metta has to be unlimited. And then let me again read how to practice metta. Now, no one should deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Because of anger and thoughts of aversion, no one should wish suffering for another. Just as a mother would protect her son, her only son, with her own life, so one should develop towards all beings a state of mind without boundaries. I repeat, a state of mind without boundaries. And toward the whole world, one should develop loving kindness, a state of mind without boundaries, above, below, and across, unconfined, without enmity, without adversaries. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as one is not drowsy, one should resolve on this mindfulness. They call this a divine dwelling. So I just read it for you. So here you see the whole concept of metta, how it to be practiced towards all beings, and then it defines who are the all beings, and then it goes on describing how to practice metta. Now, I think both these aspects have to be understood when we try to see the significance of this concept. So, on the one hand, your metta doesn't know bounds, so it is unlimited. And then, how do you practice metta? You practice metta basically thinking about all beings, about their various aspects of their life, and then you should not deceive them. You should not take advantage of them, and so on. Now, I think this aspect needs our serious attention, because particularly in the traditional Buddhist countries, we have a kind of set formula. We have a kind of set formula for practicing metta. So we simply say, may all beings be well and happy, and so on. Now, when something becomes a mechanical formula, it tend to lose its significance. Even without any sentiment of metta, you can just repeat this formula. So I have seen that that happens very often. However, when you look at Karnimetta Sutta, you can see that it is not that set formula of couple of words, but it is various ways of thinking how to the practice of metta. In other words, uh, it is to imagine 1,001 ways of practicing metta. Now, it is not merely to think that may all beings be happy. Now, particularly when you think about, of course, thinking about all beings is, we know, very important, because it has to encompass to that particular person. I think you have won the challenge. Because when you think about all beings, you don't have really an object in a way. So I'm not saying that you should, ultimately, we should really think about all beings. But in the real metta practice, we go to all beings, starting from first yourself, and then then your family people, near people, physically near people, in the vicinity or in the locality you are living in, and then in the city, in the township, in the country, in the region. Ultimately, you go to the whole world. No, then ultimately you go even beyond this earth we are inhabiting. You go to the whole universe, but then you don't start from there. Okay, you don't start from there. You just go to all beings in that manner. So therefore, to think about practicing metta, and then 1,001 ways of practicing metta, is something very important. If we have not thought about it up to this point, I think it is important for us to be aware of that. Now, for example, if you want to practice metta towards somebody, some family, some people, you can practice your metta in thinking that may their all wishes, good wishes, will be realized. May his examination will be successful. May he get a good house. May he get a good car, or may he get a promotion in his career. In this manner, there is no set formula. When you think of a well-being of a particular person, I think you can think about 1,001 ways of practicing metta, right? So this is I think the crux of the Karnimetta Sutta, where we imagine many ways, not the set formula. And in my theme itself, I underlined metta in thought, third thought has to be manifested or come out, in our word and also in our deed. Now, I think this particular aspect of um, transforming the metta thought into word and deed is very important thing, because otherwise what happens is your mental exercise, if it is not displayed, practiced, if it doesn't come out as concrete actions or concrete words, then of course it is not, I would say, meaningful. Because the whole idea is that even if you take this story of the Buddhist monks who were asked to develop metta and go back to the same forest, I think ultimately what really means is these Buddhist monks, not only in their thought, but also in their word and also in their deed, they have metta. So therefore, this concrete metta, this practical aspect of metta that comes out from even one single beautiful word or one single gesture, one single action is really the metta in practice. So therefore, we can see that through metta, the Buddha was teaching us the whole life practice. Ultimately, the life has to be defined by metta thought, metta word, and metta deed. Now, I don't need to go into details of explaining to you how significant this behavior can be, but let me get your attention to what is in the discourse itself. It talks about the mother's love towards her own child. Now, again, this is the highest we can think, mother's love toward her child. Now, we know that usually in religions, we are told about, say, all compassionate divine being, compassionate God, who is loving and compassionate and merciful towards all beings. In religions believing in creation, the God is merciful and compassionate towards his creation. Now, in Buddhism, being a religious system, not having God, as the central figure in the system, it is beautiful to see how it would articulate this whole concept. So, in Buddhist tradition, we are told that your mother and father are your creators. Okay, so I mean, this has a very deep philosophical and sociological meaning. But basically, your mother and your father is compared to, in the Buddhist tradition, to Indian concept of God is Brahma. During the time of the Buddha, it was basically the concept of Brahma. Brahma is was understood to be the creator of the universe. So in the Buddhist tradition, Buddha says that in the Buddhist tradition, it is the parents who are the Brahma, or who are the God, or who are the creator of their own children. So we know that the parental concept gets limited into a family, but within family, it is the mother basically, and it is the mother and the father and their love. So the metta is considered to be a Brahma Vihara, the form of noble and highest living. So this is how the Buddhist tradition would articulate. So ultimately, the whole emphasis is on manasang bhavaye aparimanang. We must develop the boundless mind. A boundless mind, ultimately, of course, it starts from oneself, and then it goes beyond oneself to the entire society and to the entire world. I think this is basically the concept of the metta we have been, try to articulate this morning. And then Buddhist discourses list the personal benefits, the whole list of personal benefits we get from the practice of metta. Now, in one discourse, some 11 benefits are listed. The person who practices metta can sleep well, he gets up well, and then he doesn't see nightmares, and he is loved by people, human beings, he is loved by the non-human beings, animals and others, he is protected by gods, and he is not affected by natural forces like fire, flood, or things like that. And then his mind gets concentrated pretty easily, and then his face becomes radiant, and finally he passes away, he dies with unconfused mind. And lastly, it says that if that person doesn't improve further, he is born in Brahma world. So all these things are listed as consequences of practicing metta. Now, we know that these consequences are basically the personal consequences. So if you practice metta, if you mind this metta mind, then you sleep well, and then you get up well, you get up fresh. I think these are things, at least some of these things, we all can experience in our life. If our behavior becomes full of metta, then you will see that you fall asleep without much trouble. And at the same time, you feel that you are loved by people. You are loved by, dogs and animals and, other non-human beings. Your life becomes simple, pleasant, and beautiful. So these are personal things. However, at the same time, we should know that your personal behavior ultimately becomes the social behavior and a social force, and then it has much larger implications for the entire world we are living in. We know that we have developed highly developed, technically developed society, but and we are equipped with much knowledge about the world, and then we have very sophisticated machinery, and also we have very sophisticated weaponry. So you can see that the entire world situation is trying to conquer other people physically, retaliation. So the whole national policies formed, having that aim in mind. So I'm not going into all these political matters, but I think all the knowledgeable people listening to me at this moment, we know that metta is not only a personal asset. Ultimately, it creates a world where we can be living peacefully and harmoniously. Okay, coming towards the end of my the presentation, let me also say a little bit about metta in the path. Now, Karni Metta Sutta doesn't talk very much about the path, but of course, metta is given ultimately in the context of path. So the very last part of Karni Metta Sutta is not taking up any views, possessing good behavior, endowed with vision, having removed greed for sensual pleasures, one never again comes back to the bed of a womb. Now, it refers, one realizes that one follows the path by practicing metta, and then finally one attains the nirvanic goal by practicing metta. I think how this happens is very important, because I'm not going to go into detail, because if you want, maybe we can have a discussion on that brief. But basic idea is that according to Buddhist explanation, the path to nirvana has to be realized by eradicating two main things, namely attachment or desire, and aversion or anger. And then, of course, this anger and desire are rooted on what is called moha, or the confusion, or what we call ignorance. So therefore, the ignorance, the lack of proper understanding, and then based on lack of proper understanding, the desire and the anger, attachment and the aversion. So metta, we can see that very clearly connects with this whole concept of path by being antidote to the anger. Because metta is, the anger is countered by metta. Now, as the practice of meditation, metta is prescribed to people who have anger as the main characteristic. Now, that is a practical aspect of that. But having said that, we also know that all of us have anger in different degrees. Now, ultimately, the two factors that bind us to the samsara are desire and anger. So therefore, looking from that point of view, we know that metta provides a very important link to the path. In other words, it plays a very, very important link how we should practice the path. Now, metta towards all beings. Your metta like that of a mother to her own child. What does this say? Ultimately, our whole behavior has to be very generous behavior. Now, like a mother to the child. Of course, that's the ideal. Maybe we are falling short of that in occasions, but that still remains the ideal. Now, the important question here is how are you yourself located in this whole thing? Now, can you practice metta completely forgetting yourself? Or how do you do that? Now, I think this is something important when we look at this whole practice soteriologically. How do we do that? Where do you locate yourself in this whole practice? Now, in the popular practice, we say that you have to start metta from yourself, and then you should go into the external world. Now, that has a meaning, because in a way we can say that to begin with, you must be able to practice metta towards yourself. But you should not have self-anger. You should not have destructive thoughts. So you start your metta from yourself. However, I think according to the sutta, another more meaningful way to look at this would be when you have ultimately the boundless metta, the mind of without boundaries. Manasang bhavaye aparimana. Aparimana, the Pali word means no boundary, no limit. Now, when you have developed a mindset without any limit, then of course you are talking about the entire world, including yourself. Although yourself is not specifically mentioned, you are also included in the entire world. It is not ultimately something like you versus the world. I think that is the important point. Ultimately, it is not you or me versus the world. It is the whole world where you are also part of that. Now, you are an integral part of the world from which you cannot be isolated or separated, and the world cannot be separated from you and from vice versa. So in that sense, we can see that in the practice of metta, you practice metta towards yourself, and you practice metta towards ultimately all beings. Because in the metta practice, sometimes in the Buddhist literature we see that when you have overly practicing metta towards yourself, that can be ended up in something negative. I mean, self-desire, self-love. Or you try to practice metta towards your loved ones, the very near and dear people, then it becomes again a kind of lust. So the metta could turn into something not very positive. However, I think there it has to come this whole concept of mother's love, and also metta without boundaries. When we have metta without boundaries, it includes yourself, and also it includes the whole world. Okay, now I think I briefly touched the three different aspects of practicing metta. So according to Karani Metta Sutta, we saw what all beings means in the entire world, sabbe satta. And then we saw how metta should be practiced. And this is what I described as 1001 ways of practicing metta. Actually, 1001 ways of practicing metta, we can really list or think or imagine these things according to our own knowledge and our own the need of practicing. So you can imagine so many different ways of practicing metta, wishing well-being of other people. So that is the second aspect. And the third aspect, briefly, I finally discuss is the soteriological significance of the concept. So I think these are the basically what I wanted to discuss with you this afternoon with you. The important concept of metta, or being friendly, or being a friend to the world. Ultimately, in the Buddhist analysis, one is a friend unto oneself. One is a friend unto others. So therefore, at some point, you yourself and also the world, this whole difference between yourself and the world, the kind of disappears. You become a universal person with the universal concept of metta. In other words, metta is the Buddhist way to transcend oneself and being part of the whole world. So where you don't have any kind of boundaries. Now this can happen basically in your mind, and then what happens in your mind, you can practice in your word and deed. However, although you are a universal person, physically we can't be universal. We are in a certain family, we are in a certain locality, we are in a certain society. So ultimately, being a universal person, you can still be practicing within your family, among your friends, in your workplace, in your locality, ultimately in your country, and so on. So therefore, being universal is your whole mental setup, and then how you practice is, how this universalist concept, how it becomes, or how it is put into practice. So therefore, friends, I think I should stop at this point and open for discussion. I hope the reception was clear, so I will wind up, and thank you again for your attention, and then maybe we will go for discussion. I see some the remarks in the chat box. Maybe we will look at them, or the I think Venerable and the convener can conduct the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for the short and meaningful lesson on Mettā. I'm sure all Dhamma friends around the world were benefited today. I believe there are a couple questions from the audience. So there's a question: is there a distinction between karuna and Mettā? If yes, can you please explain a little bit on the matter?
Distinction between what? I could not get the second part.
Karuna.
Mettā.
Karuna and Mettā.
Mettā and karuna. Yeah, I think that's the important observation, really. What is the distinction between karuna and metta? Now, karuna basically is the concept we articulate in English language as compassion. Now, very concept of compassion. So that together you reach some state of mind. I think this concept of karuna is pretty close to that concept of compassion, because karuna usually rises in us as an indication of our sympathy towards another person. Say, for example, when another person is in trouble, or we perceive another person as being in trouble, so the kind of sentiment we get in our mind is karuna. But the difference is, like, metta is not coming in our mind by way of that type of sentiment. I mean, we feel bad about somebody. We feel moved by some person or something. Then we get into action. I think that is karuna. However, metta basically does not come out from that type of mentality. Metta is basically the universally positive aspect of mind, where the other person is not really in trouble or anything. See, other person is also the normal person, but then your whole attitude towards the other person is very positive attitude. Not necessarily the other person is in trouble. So therefore the two contexts are different, but of course metta and karuna are both the belonging to the same family. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha are considered to be the best of noble living Brahma Vihara, which I referred to earlier. So, but basically, the kindness comes as a response to other people's troubles. And the metta comes basically as expression of your own positive attitude towards others. I would put it that way. Would that be helpful?
I think you are mute.
Is that right?
Another question. I find it difficult at times to practice metta. For example, facing a frustration towards a coworker at the workplace. I wish them well and happiness. However, the frustration stays.
Can't you hear me?
Yes, we can. I think the connection, Bante, is a little...
No, we can hear you, sir. It was her. She was mute. That's why I said at the beginning. All right. I think until he comes back, we would like to say it was challenging all the time. So Professor Asanga to joining, there was a power cut and then a connection issue, and somehow also he had eye surgery coming up, and all with all the troubles he made it today, and I really appreciate Professor Asanga. And I was really wondering how he was running here and there with the phone, and he was very focused on his lecture, and so really appreciate. Until he comes back, hopefully we can talk a little bit about the Mettā. Karaniya Metta Sutta being such an important sutta in today's context. Especially in the Buddhist world, Karaniya Metta Sutta is a very famous sutta, and I'm so happy that Professor Asanga um, selected this sutta today. And I noticed that he was focusing on 3 different themes, and that was very deep and profound. And I think it will be very helpful to all of us. So, Selviana, you said you have we have a question here. So until we get Professor back, maybe we can discuss a little bit. So, finding it difficult to practice metta, especially towards co-workers at the workplace. Yeah. So I think so. First of all, you need to send loving kindness to yourself. That is very important thing. And then you start to send loving kindness to your near and dear one. That is actually a gradual progress. And then you can go to the neutral ones. Neutral ones are like people, like most of the world, people in the world, they are neutral, right? So I think this is very important, especially when you work with the people. We can't live alone. We have to live with other people. We have to communicate with them. So it's really important that we work with others. Um, so start thinking of sending loving kindness to yourself, and then to near and dear ones, and then slowly progress into even the neutral ones. Yeah. So that's important, and then we can even go back to the other people, like who are not friendly with you. So in the office, I think all these people are there, right? You have the near and dear ones, you have the neutral ones, and also the unfriendly ones, or the hard ones are also there. Yeah.
Yes, I think many people can relate to that, Bante.
That's right. So I think it is really important that we try to practice this way, like continue to practice slowly, gradually, step by step, and then eventually one day we could even send loving kindness to everyone. It is really, really possible, and it is just a matter of practice. You keep doing it, and it can happen. And when you seriously, sincerely, when you do it, you can actually make sure that your practice can be really profound, and you can reach the goal where you can give. Okay, I think he's here. Okay, sir. Welcome back.
I'm sorry, there's this technical something happened, and I'm really sorry. So can we go back to the question earlier?
Yes. So what we were talking about, the challenges that you are already facing with the internet connection, and also the computer and all, yet you were still focusing on. I saw you were even moving here and there, and you were still focusing on your talk. I was thinking, yes, thank you so much.
Actually, it was challenging because the electricity went off. So to know the announcing to the entire world,
Yeah,
embarrassing. But therefore, even to read the text, I had to go to the,
I saw that.
how this is what happened. So
Thank you so
anyway,
much for making
anyway,
yourself available for this wonderful talk on Karaniya Metta Sutta. And I think we have a question here. Selviana, can you read it out?
Yes. I find it difficult at times to practice metta. For example, facing a frustration towards a coworker at the workplace. I wish them well and happiness. However, the frustration stays. Is this a normal feeling? I think we lost.
mhm.
No, it's okay. No, it's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Again, there seems to be some disturbance.
No, we can hear
Uh,
you.
Let me see whether I can enter from.
No, no, you're okay. We hear you, sir. I think he's trying to change the computer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you. Yes. We can send, Vivi, can you please repeat the question again?
Yes. I find it difficult at times to practice metta. For example, facing a frustration towards a coworker at the workplace. I wish them well and happiness, however, the frustration stays. Is this a normal feeling in practicing metta?
Yeah, I think it is. In my understanding, it is very normal. You know, like those unfriendly, unpleasant feelings can happen to anyone. Emotions can change, mood can change, but it can always happen. It should be okay, and you need to recognize that, and you need to come out of that. One day you need to see, and wow, I could do that. I could send loving kindness, not just by word. He said today, by word, by thought, and by deed, right?
Mhm.
So in all three forms, I could do that. So you can try that. Sometimes we just say to people like, may you be well, happy, healthy. But can we also really do
Mhm.
it in action? And can we even in our heart, can we do that? Very sincerely, purely, pure-hearted. If we can do that, I think that is a really, really important practice. You can do that. You need to continue to do that.
I think also, Bante, if a practice that we all can put in place is that, trying to not engage in a toxic conversation, at the workplace, because there's a lot of situation where, you know, gossiping, right, happens at work, and it creates conflict.
Yeah.
So by us not engaging in those toxic conversation, I think
Hmm.
that can help, sending loving kindness also.
Like in, I think in Samma Vacha or good word or right speech, That includes, like, you can get rid of all those gossip. We say, like, Musavada, we don't tell lies, and Pisuna Vacha, we don't engage in those words that can harm other people, like that can break apart beautiful relationship. Gossip is really something that can harm many people.
Yeah.
And Musavada, Pisuna Vacha, this is the slandering, and then Parusa Vacha, using harsh words to hurt others. In the Karaniyametta Sutta also, it was said, Nacha Kuddang Samachare Kinchiyena Vinyu Pare Upavadeyu. How important it is to um, use, practice ourselves not to hurt anyone. Yeah, by word, by deed, by thought. That's really, really very important. Yeah, and I think we can. Professor is trying to come, still trying to join, and I really feel sorry, but that is the situation. Sometimes, in certain countries where we have internet issues, maybe due to weather or maybe due to poor connection, and all these things can happen, especially in Sri Lanka. Power cut is happening all the time, so Professor is trying to
Connect.
connect, and maybe, yeah, I think he's back. Yes, yes. Welcome back. That's a nice laugh.
This is frustrating. Okay, let me say something about the question. I think that's a very challenging question. It's a challenging question because it challenges us, all of us, in our practical life. I mean, in our workplace, and sometimes in our own family. It frustrates a lot. Now, in answering this question, I would like to go back to the origin of Karanimetta Sutta, where the commentator says that Sutta was taught by the Buddha partly as the device for protection. Now, in fact, I think the very important thing is how do we should we understand this concept of protection? Whose protection? Now, it's not obviously Buddha is talking about a kind of protection that comes from outside. Clearly, Buddha is referring to a sense of protection that comes from inside. I think the question at the workplace, or in similar situations, can come from on the one hand, you need to be keeping your peace in your mind and the balance of your behavior, but at the same time you feel certain people's behavior to be annoying, irritating, or irrational, whatever, uh, or needing improvement. Now, of course, there is a possibility that our own judgments can be wrong. Maybe what we think to be rational or wrong or something, that aspect is also there. Considering that, okay, your judgment is the correct judgment. Okay, other people need to be uh, given some help, and need to be supported, but they don't seem to be responsive to it. Then how are you going to do that? On one hand, as you say correctly, you are frustrated, but at the same time, you are trying to do something. I think ultimately, referring to my own experience in life, I think we get frustrated often. I mean, particularly when you get frustrated when you are a sensitive person. I think that's the price we sometimes pay. I think the whole issue is that not that we cannot. Again, I mean, I'm talking from my experience. I don't know whether it helped you or not. I mean, we may not be able to stop getting frustrated. But what we can do is the moment we get frustrated, we must be able to come back to the normalcy
that security Buddha talks about in the Karani Metta Sutta, where when we are inner secure, because there is always a limit. We can do things to the outside world, right? Very often we get frustrated because of the other people's behavior, but at the same time you feel the need that you need to keep your mind keep going, and keep your balance. I think life is a constant struggle where we try to understand the situation, we try to be nice and smiling, and but that's a this whole concept of wounded healer. Healer himself is gets wounded, but at the same time you can't be stopping healing other people, but at the same time you have to heal yourself. I mean, it's a pretty difficult thing. So in other words, what I'm saying is, social life is full of challenges. It's full of challenges. Daily we meet these challenges, but how to sit down quietly 2 minutes, sit on a chair and make up your mind and go back. Now, maybe I may find this pessimistic if I say that life is completely, without trouble or anything like that. Ultimately, Buddha would say, look, this is why I said you keep sansara. But here we are trying to make things within the sansara. So so long as we are trying to make things within the sansara, I think we can't think about life without frustrations. But within the sansara you have to do it. I'm reminded of this very well-known simile. I think it was I read it somewhere by philosopher of science Rudolf Carnap or something. He says something about repairing your boat while you are in the sea. How are you going to repair your boat while you are in the sea? Can you dismantle the whole boat? No. But you still have to repair your boat. You are in the middle of the sea. No option. So what you do is you take plank by plank out, and you replace one by one. I mean, this is life, isn't it? So anyway, I know that I don't have a very good answer to your question, but I'm also challenged by the situation you say. So maybe Vendible has something more sober to say, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think like people try to make their physical body stronger by going to a gym or something, or taking some good food, taking care of that physical part, so you can be a stronger person. Similarly, the mind, you need to practice. By practicing meditation, you can really make your mind stronger, so that compared to other people, those practitioners can do it better. So I think it's not only like metta meditation is not only like sitting with closed eyes, but also while walking, while working, while talking, while driving. You can do while cooking. You can do that all the time. So you have to be really mindful about that. I think when you are stronger within, your inner peace, when it is stronger, you can practice much better. So that's what I think.
And with the practice of metta, your moments of, the duration of your moments of frustration definitely going to be shorter and shorter. But I think that comes with the experience of life. The whole
Yeah.
concept of protection, ultimately, you are inner protected by metta.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't. I mean, our control of the external world is always very limited.
Yeah.
So while trying to do whatever you can do, positive thing, at the same time, you keep the balance of your mind. I mean, that's how I would consider.
Yeah, like in the sutta it is said like nacha khuddang samachare kinchi yena vinyu pare upavadeyam sukhino
Right.
va kemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata. I think Professor was touching that point already. So how important it is to think, like be mindful. Like we have to be constantly mindful, alert. Otherwise, we don't know what will happen the next moment. Anything can happen to us if we are out of our mind. So we need to continuously practice our mindfulness. I think that will be really helpful, even in practicing metta.
Sure. I was also wondering if there are any other sutta that reflect loving kindness besides Karaniya Metta Sutta, and one of the our audience, had commented that Kakachum
Kakachupama.
Kakachupama Sutta,
Kakachupama Sutta.
yeah, and Jiwaka Sutta are also similar.
Right. Yeah, very true. Actually, very true. But Kakachupama Sutta, of course, all suttas come within certain context. Now, Kakachupama Sutta again come in the context of monastic life, and Jivaka Sutta is also same. But of these suttas, uh, a careful study of Karnimetta Sutta would show that actually that is the Buddhist universal declaration of friendliness, because that is where the whole concept has been fully articulated. Again, as you know, it comes within a particular context, but ultimately that is the. I mean, in my readings of Buddhism and many other religions, I think it is true to say that I have never come across as beautiful a place like Karnimetta Sutta, where Buddha, articulates this concept. So therefore, definitely there are many other, because as we saw, ultimately, metta counters anger. I mean, anger is, the one. I mean, very 50% of our sansaric journeys, raga and dosa. So the dosa or anger is a very important. So therefore, there are so many discourses where Buddha talks about metta, definitely. So thank you very much for pointing out. But the special significance of Karni Metta Sutta is because it's where it has been articulated completely and comprehensively. Thank you.
Can you please explain if there are any practical techniques to keep the mind aware of metta constantly as one goes about one's day engaging in activities?
Um, Yeah, again, very, very important question. In my discussion, uh, I'm not really going to be giving anyone advice, because I also being fair of the path like anybody else, and facing the similar difficulties. Now my own experience is that actually day-to-day life is very, very challenging. One way to cope with this would be my own way of doing this. Practically every day when I get up, I think about think about that particular day, and let this day be a day where I can do something good, and I can the control myself. I can be nice, and I get up the wherever, whenever possible, with that thought of mind. But so long as I think the Venerable Sumita touched the point, you are mindful, you are in control. But again, my own experience, of course, I'm sure there are others who are the more developed than I mean myself. But my own experience is, for example, when I start driving, particularly in the context like Sri Lanka, I always think that let me drive without getting mad. So that is how I start. But that happens. I find myself being mad, and almost cursing to myself. But then again, sudden thought comes, Asanga, this is not what you are supposed to do. I think that second thought comes because I'm being I have been trying to understand this situation. But very often what happens is that second thought will never come to you, and you will be guided by your anger on the road. So I think I have not got into disasters so far, because the moment I get mad, the second thought comes, no, this is not what you should do. So I think, again, my advice may be not very enlightening, but I think I'm one who is trying to cope with this situation. So the awareness of metta brings you into reality pretty quickly. It doesn't guarantee you complete immunity from getting angry. But the moment you get angry, your metta, if you have practice, if you are practicing it, if it is in the background, so that's your defense. It comes back. It's like, your airbag. Really something happens and airbag props up and protects your face. So it has to be like that. When you are vulnerable to it.
Yes, I totally agree. But I also think like in day-to-day life we get a lot of situations where we have to encounter negativity and challenges and many unpleasant situations. So in order to face that, I think we should practice metta in silent mode. That sitting posture practice can be really helpful. I noticed that it helps us to remind, and it helps us to strengthen, consolidate our mindfulness, and then we can. There is a gap between our reaction to our emotions, and that gap can be narrowed when we practice more. That I notice. Sometimes when we are angry, we don't even recognize that we are angry, but when you keep practicing, like sitting practice, that can help you to narrow that down, so that eventually you should be able to see that mindfulness as the gatekeeper coming knocking at you. Hey, it is anger. So I think that way you can really cope up with the anger right here, right now. So whenever you are angry, you should know that I am angry, and you should control yourself not to say a word. So physically, verbally, as Professor said, physically, verbally, mentally, it is possible, although it is challenging. Yeah, I think we have one more question, and we can move on.
What is the relationship between Mettā and other Brahma Viharas? Why is it that Mettā is more highlighted in the suttas than other Brahma Viharas?
Uh, yeah, thank you very much. I think it's again a very interesting question. We have Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekha. How I understand, of course, why Metta is first and others are second, third, and fourth. There are two ways of looking at it. Anyway, in a list, one item has to be the first, and ultimately there must be a concluding item. But here what happens is, in Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and then Upekha, I think I take Metta, Karuna, and Mudita to be three cognate, interconnected concepts. And then concluding concept of Upekha is a very mature state of mind, not passive. So it's a culmination of Metta, Karuna, and Mudita. So Upekha is that. So therefore, I think Metta basically comes from the fact that Metta as a basis provides room for Karuna and Mudita, ultimately leading to Upekha. Now, we saw earlier also, Karuna comes within a particular context of when other people are in trouble. Mudita comes in a situation where you are rejoicing other people's well-being, right? But then Metta is the all-pervading universal state of positive mind. So it is that positive. I mean, if you don't have metta, you can't be having karuna. or compassion or kindness or mudita. So therefore, according to my understanding, metta provides the very universal and also positive state you wish to others. And then wishing, when you wish to others, you can't be ignoring when someone is in trouble, karuna. And also you will be rejoicing when other people are rejoicing. I mean, that shows you are not malicious, you are not jealous, you are broad and open minded. So therefore my answer in brief will be, of course all viharas are correct, but then metta provides the very basis of this positive mindset uh, articulated by Prabhupada.
I think we can conclude
You can go
today's
ahead.
talk, Bante, or do we have another? Okay, we have another one. People have loving kindness inside, but why cannot they prove it through their action?
Well, that's a very challenging thing. But if you have loving kindness in your, if you have loving kindness uh, in you, but I think why you can't prove it through action has to be explained with reference to many other things. For example, uh, like I see sometime when I go through social media, particularly in the context of Sri Lanka, I see sometime the person is asking for support to get treatment for cancer or some kind of thing. And the moment I read that, I feel I feel moved. But whether I write a check, you know, that depends on not only my whether the fact that I am moved, whether I have a sufficient bank balance, whether I am, so there can be many similar situations. I'm not talking about providing excuses for not to do, but putting a thought into practice requires several other aspects. So the why people can't put these things into practice, my answer would be I appreciate the sentiment behind the question, because the sentiment behind the question seems to be that thought alone is not enough, you have to do something. I fully agree with that. I mean, there is no doubt about that, because sometimes Buddhist metta is being wrongly understood. Now, today I quoted Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. I remember at one point Bhikkhu made one point very clear, because in a lot of Theravada settings, we talk about metta, but we don't talk about metta being put into practice by word or deed. That is why in today's discussion, I specifically mentioned metta in thought, word, and deed, right? But then I did not discuss the practical difficulties and the realities and all these things. But I appreciate this question. Thank you very much.
I think we can conclude tonight's discussion. Thank you again, Professor. It's an honor to have you here with us. Bante, I would like to invite you to say a few words before we close.
Yeah, so today I really appreciate Professor Asanga Thilakaratne. First of all, I'm so happy to meet you, and after a long time. And then again, we really respect you for humbly accepting our invitation to say a few words to our audience. And also, we would like to continue this discussion. I think hopefully we can have a better discussion again with another topic. And Professor, really happy, and we wish you all the very best. And I wish you all personally sending prayers to you for your good health and longevity to continue your wonderful contribution towards the Buddhist studies in the world. And your
Thank you.
contribution to Buddhism in Sri Lanka, and also academically, both academically and socially, we have noticed that it is really making a lot of influence. We really feel inspired to read your articles, your books, and maybe before ending, I also would like to ask you about the Dhamrivi Foundation. Maybe you can say a few words about Dhamrivi Foundation. I think that's
Uh,
also a really wonderful service you are working through.
Thank you very much, Venerable. Thank you so much for giving that opportunity. Damri Foundation, we started actually now about 20 years. The whole idea was we are a registered Buddhist social organization. And particularly there are so many Buddhist social organizations, social work organizations. So when all these organizations are there was always a question, why do you have to have another one? In fact, our idea was, particularly in the context of Sri Lanka, we have social organizations, a lot of charity. We wanted to start a group of people and, set up where we are thinking, looking at the teachings of the Buddha and the practices of Buddhism, and try to see whether the teachings of Buddhism can be helpful to the society. So that was the idea. So therefore, we don't emphasize in very much charity. We are supporting the charity, doing people, and also we sometimes, even very recently, just a few days ago, we engage in such activity, but that is not our main focus. Main focus is to conduct programs to children, adolescents, young people, and the mature and elderly people. Programs like attitude building and also meditation, and we also do counseling. We have developed really a counseling course called Counseling with Buddhist Inputs, Insights, and then we teach that course, and also we provide counseling to those who need
So, do you have it
Buddhist
online as
insights
well?
in Buddhist organization. Our service list, we don't. Hello, pardon me.
Do you have
Yeah,
online?
we are not confined to Buddhist. Yeah, Venerable, right now, actually, our services are all ground level. I mean, like things at the moment. So occasionally we have online discussions and things like that. But the counseling course teach also Pali. Pali courses are basically online at the moment, but these are due to this Corona situation. But our counseling course we teach only in Sinhala. Pali we teach in both English and Sinhala, and then they are online. So we also conduct meditation, and we also have Buddhist psychology. So ultimately, what we do is basically try to incorporate Buddhist insights and highlight the Buddhist insights into day-to-day existence. But then we have a center in Havelock Town in Colombo, and we have the place, and where we have a small auditorium and a meditation hall. So we are running the place with a very small staff. So anyone is welcome to help. So but this is what we are doing at the moment. Thank you very much. Our website is being reconstructed at the moment, but still you can see. Thank you, Venerable, for the opportunity.
Yeah. May I take this opportunity to
Okay.
invoke blessings upon Professor Asanga Thilakaratne. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you, help you, protect you, and guide you towards the right path. May you always be well, happy, healthy, safe wherever you are. May you and your loved ones, near and dear ones, be well, happy, healthy, safe. May all those people who join us today also be well, happy, healthy. And thank you, Vivi, for hosting the event today. And looking forward to seeing you again with another event like this. And may all sentient beings Be well, happy, healthy. Sabbe Sata Bhavantu Sukhitata. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Venerable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.